What's up, people? My name is James Blissett, professional sports bettor and founder of Lucrative MMA, which is my handicapping service where I help people make money from betting on MMA. If you want to see more about that, hit the links in the bio. But today we're going to be talking about UFC Vegas 40, the upcoming card on Saturday. It's kind of annoying this week because Bellator also have a card on the same day. I hate when they do that. I much prefer when the Bellator has the Friday card and the UFC has the Saturday card, so we get 2 days in a row. We don't have to have the double screens out, but it is what it is. At the end of the day, I'm just happy we got fights. We've gone through such a long period of time in the world where things have been shut down. Even now, the country I live at, New Zealand, we're in lockdown, so the gyms are not open, restaurants are not open, hairdressers, as you can probably tell, is getting a bit long up here. All of that sort of stuff. And obviously, COVID shut down quite a few fights. Fights are still being pulled from COVID. So I'm just happy to have some fights, not complaining, but, it would have been good if they could separate the days. But today I'm going to be talking about UFC Vegas 40. Obviously, this is a underwhelming card, but I still think it's going to be exciting. And obviously we'll get into that more when I speak about particularly the most exciting fight on the card. Just a little recap on how we've been doing over the last year, I guess, or over the last few weeks. We've had a really good start to quarter four, which is obviously the last quarter of the year. Starts the beginning of September, the end of September. So October. So we've had a great start to October. We won 10 units on the first weekend, and then I believe we won 1 unit last weekend. So up about 11 units this quarter so far. That brings us to 111 units overall in 2021 so far. So completely smashing it. We've earned, more money than I could ever imagine this year. And hopefully I'm going to continue doing it. So as always, if you don't know this podcast, I break down the most exciting fight on the card, or at least what I perceive to be. And then I'm going to be talking about the most inaccurate betting line on the card. Obviously, this podcast is a betting podcast. So I'm always talking about these matchups from a betting angle, right? From a betting perspective. A lot of podcasts, a lot of YouTube videos, content that you will watch when people are talking about MMA. It's just, who they think is going to win and general MMA chit chat. But this is obviously a betting podcast, right? So anything I talk about is through the lens of a bettor, which is me and probably you. So I'm going to be talking about most exciting fight, most inaccurate line, and then the main event, right? I always talk about the main event, again, from a betting perspective. This week we have Norma Dumont versus Aspen Ladd. The main event got shit on a little bit from what I can see, but I do think it's going to be a good main event. Obviously, both girls made weight easily. It's 145. So, I do think it's going to be a good main event, but we'll get onto that more at the end of the podcast when I touch on that segment. First segment, as always, as it always is in this podcast, is the most exciting fight on the card. Now, this might not turn out to be the most exciting fight on the card. Probably most of you are expecting me to say Jordan Wright versus Julian Marquez, although I believe that's actually been cancelled now, so I can't say that. And there are a couple of other fights that probably could have took the cake. To be honest, even the main event, Aspen Ladd versus Norma Dumont, I believe that's going to be a solid fight as well. But obviously, because it's the main event, I didn't also want to talk about it in this segment. The fight I'm going to be talking about is the Ludavik Klein versus Nate Landry fight. Obviously, it's got the potential to finish early. So, early finishes in fights usually mean that they're not the most exciting fight on the card, right? Because the most exciting fight, the one that usually earns fight of the night, is a fight that goes back and forth. Both fighters have their moments. But if a fight finishes early, there's just not enough time elapsed to take the cake for the most exciting fight on the card. And I do think that this fight could finish early, but I'm still going to say it's the most exciting fight on the card because, to be honest, even if it finishes early, I do think it's going to be an electric couple of minutes, right? And obviously, it could go long. And I'll get into it. So at the moment, we've got Ludavik Klein sitting as a -400 favorite on the betting line. And we've got his opponent, Nate Landwehr, sitting at about a +300, +330 in some spots, 5 dimes there, I can see it. So, Ludavik Klein's a big favorite here, and he has been in all of his UFC matchups, except for his debut, which he was still a favorite. And you don't see that too often. Fighters coming in on their debuts, usually they are undervalued because they just haven't proven it at that UFC level yet. But he wasn't. I think he opened up as an underdog against Shane Young on his debut. But, the public watched tape. Me and you, sports bettors, we watched tape. We realized, Not me personally. I avoided the fight, but a lot of people realized that, okay, this could be a good fight for Ludavik Klein. And they bet Ludavik Klein. And then obviously Ludavik Klein eventually became a favorite. I think he went off as like a minus 130 favorite in that spot. And he made quick work of Shane Young. He put him out in about 2 minutes, 1 minute, 30 seconds or something like that. And I was quite impressed because obviously Shane Young's kind of known for his chin. It's not really good to be known for your chin because obviously what that means is usually that you get hit quite often. But he is known to have a decent chin. But Ludavik Klein obviously tested that chin early and knocked him out very quick with a head kick and a couple of uppercuts. It was a very good finish and a great introduction to him in the UFC. Then he takes on Mike Trizano and, he's a big favorite there, minus 230, minus 250, something like that. And, he gets outworked in that fight. The volume isn't there for him. Mike Trizano is able to keep tough, doesn't get knocked out, and just basically puts that pace and pressure on him and wins that fight. It was a close fight, back and forth. Ludavik Klein got a few takedowns in that fight, which was good to see in general, because obviously he's known as a striker. He's got good striking, but obviously what that tells me is that if he isn't able to win the striking or if he isn't feeling comfortable in the striking realm, he can mix in takedowns, which is obviously a good thing you want to see from any fighter, right? You want to see the ability for them to switch up their game plan or, at least adapt in fight. The best fighters are able to adapt while the fight is going on. You think of Alexander Volkanovski in the second Max Holloway fight, the best fighters of all time, they adapt mid-fight, not only in between fights, right? Not like they get outworked in the grappling in one fight, they come back 6 months later and they got better grappling. No, the best fighters in the world are able to adapt mid-fight, So it seems like Ludavik Klein was able to adapt a little bit in that fight. Obviously didn't get him the win there, but still something good to see on his fight IQ going for takedowns. Also, now let's talk about Nate Landwehr. So this guy is an exciting fighter. And anytime this guy fights, he's probably always going to be in the running for potentially the most exciting fight of the night, right? Because the guy keeps walking forward. He doesn't have great takedown defense. He will kind of just enter pocket, enter range, enter that danger zone with disregard for his chin because he's a tough guy. Now, he's been knocked out a couple of times in the UFC recently over the last 2 years, but I still think he's got a decent chin. I don't think his chin is completely gone. It could be, but I don't think it's completely gone. He's known for being a tough guy, right? Now, I don't, just like Shane Young, it's probably not a good idea for being known as a tough guy if you're fighting someone like Ludavik Klein, right? And that's what's happening here. So I just think styles make fights, and I think this style is going to make this fight an exciting one. Nate Landwehr obviously is going to close the distance like he does in every fight. He's going to push the pace. And Ludavik Klein's probably going to be on the back foot for some of the fight. And he's probably going to be picking Nate off at range. Nate Landwehr is going to get hit a lot in this fight. I think it's 100% nailed on that he's going to get hit a lot in this fight. I don't think he's going to be able to avoid the smooth striking of Ludavik Klein because Klein is very smooth on his feet. He'll bounce in and out of range. He'll stay light on his toes like a boxer, like a karate guy even. He'll open up with that head kick. He's got a great head kick. He comes out of nowhere. It's not telegraphed at all. And he's got very good straight shots as well. He's got a good straight left hand. Got a good straight right hand, to be honest, too. Good jab. So I don't really think Nate's going to be able to avoid the strikes in this fight. So it really just comes down to this, pretty simple. Is Nate going to be able to take the shots of Ludavik Klein that are going to hit his face? If he is, then the fight gets close. The plus 300 on Nate Landwehr is not going to look like plus 300 in my opinion. I think it will look probably more like plus 175 or something. I just do still give Ludavik Klein a solid chance of winning this fight if he isn't able to knock him out, if Nate is able to take the shots, because as I said, Nate or Ludavik has showed an ability to go to the grappling if his striking's not working. And we have seen Nate taken down a couple of times in the UFC. Obviously, he has decent defensive grappling. Like he was able to work out of that submission attempt that Herbert Burns had him in, and Herbert Burns, a credentialed jiu-jitsu fighter. So that was quite interesting to see, or impressive to see, I should say. But in general, I do think that Ludavik Klein is going to be able to get takedowns if he needs to. If Nate's pressure style that he will bring is just too much for him and he can't knock him out. But honestly, I actually think that Ludavik Klein is going to put Nate Landwehr out here. So when we're talking about, the betting side of it, I don't really like the -400 on Ludavik Klein, -360, -350, just because if Nate is going to be able to take them punches, I don't really think it's going to look like a great bet at -400. I don't really think I'll put him at 80%, probably put him more about 75%, but I do think he should be a quite a solid favorite. Maybe you could make him like a -300 favorite, but -400 is getting a little bit wide now. Yeah, I think that if you're playing Nate Landwehr, obviously, if it goes to decision, it's probably going to look like maybe a little bit of value. But then, even if it does go to decision, I kind of do favor Ludavik being able to just take him down when the pressure gets too much. And obviously, at range, he's going to be outpointing him. Maybe Nate Landwehr can, create a dogfight and win the fight that way. That's what he's going to need to do. He's going to need to push he's going to need to push Klein backwards like Trizano did, and he's going to need to make it a dogfight. Like Trizano didn't really, but he's going to need to make it a dogfight. That's just what his style calls for, right? But the thing about a dogfight is that to get in a dogfight, you have to be constantly pushing forward and crashing range. Now, the thing is that if he crashes range, obviously, Ludavik's going to have ample opportunities to knock him out. So the fight that Nate needs to win is a dogfight. But in order to push that dogfight, he has to put himself in danger. And that's a very, very worrying prospect if you're backing Nate Landwehr or if you are Nate Landwehr here. So I just think that there's lots of things going against Nate Landwehr in this fight, because even the style that he needs to implement to win, it's a dangerous style to implement against the counter striker and a precision striker like Ludavik Klein. So final prediction is Ludavik Klein via KO. But I don't like his money line. If you want to play him, I'm going to say that it's probably better to play him inside the distance, or probably even via KO, to be honest. His inside the distance line is -140, but, he doesn't get a lot of submissions on his record. And then his KO line is -120, So to be honest, I just go for the -140 just because MMA is the craziest sport in the world and anything can happen. -120 to -140. It's not a big enough gap for me there to opt for the KO. I would just go inside the distance. We saw Fluffy Hernandez submit Rodolfo Vieira. I don't really need to say much more after that, right? If there was a bigger difference, then I'd back the KO line if the KO is like +100 or something like that. But, at -120, there's not enough difference on the -140 line there. So, inside the distance is my prediction. And at -140, I think there's decent value there, to be honest. I think it's definitely 60% upwards that he knocks him out. Because I just think he's just so hittable, 60% is quite a lot to get behind. But I just think that, as I said, the fight that Nate brings in general, but also the fight that Nate needs to bring in this fight is just playing into the hands of a Klein KO. But money line side, probably Nate Landwehr. But I do think Ludavik Klein's going to get a knockout there. So that's it. That's the most exciting fight. And we move on to the next segment, which is the most inaccurate betting line on the card, right? So obviously this is probably one of the most, how can I say? This is like what the viewers, you guys, and me as well, are most excited to talk about, right? The most inaccurate line, because it's basically me saying this line is off. This market is inefficient with this line. Go and bet on this line. You should bet on this. So I'm telling you to bet on this, right? Because it's one of the most inaccurate betting lines on the card, right? As I always say, it might not be the most inaccurate. It's just one of the most inaccurate, I think. Obviously, it's impossible to tell what the most inaccurate is, obviously, until the fight happens. But this fight is an interesting fight. But I think it's just kind of like so obvious what's going to happen. And I always hate that because MMA is, as I said, MMA is the craziest game. Fluffy Hernandez submitted Rodolfo Fierro. So I never like to say things are so obvious, but I do think this is just a very obvious outcome, at least in my view anyway. And the most inaccurate line is in the fight between Andrei Arlovski and Carlos Felipe. So Carlos Felipe taking a big step up here. You know, in the UFC, he's fought Justin Tafa. He's fought Sergey Spivak. So fair enough, he might bunch Sergey Spivak into the Andrei Arlovski level this point in their careers, potentially. But yeah, Felipe's fought Justin Tafa, Jake Collier, and now he's coming in to fight Andrei Arlovski. You know, Andrei Arlovski has mixed it with the best throughout his entire career. The guy's like 38 years old now, but he might even be 40. I think he's like 40, you know. Let me just check. I think he's actually 40 or above 40. Yeah, he's 42 years old. That's crazy, eh? 42 years old, man. Wow. The guy's next big birthday is 50. That's just me exaggerating how old he is. I mean, he's 42. He's not 50, you know, but it's crazy because the guy's been, you know, in the game forever, and he's just still fighting. And to be honest, he's not slowing down. Like, he's beating these younger guys. You know, he had, like, over his last 5 fights, you know, he's won 3 of them. And he only lost to Jairzinho and Tom Aspinall. Jairzinho's, you know, top 5 heavyweight. Say what you want about him. He knocked out Sakai recently. So Jairzinho's top 5 heavyweight now. He won't be for too long, in my opinion, but he is now. And Tom Aspinall, you know, future of the heavyweight division, one of them. You know, when I'm just saying future of the heavyweight division, I just remembered, I think I had a dream that Cyril Gane beat Francis Ngannou last night. Was that last night? You know, when you have dreams and then when you say something, you remember them. I've just literally remembered that now when I've said future of the heavyweight division. But don't go and bet on Cyril Gane to win because I've had so many bets about MMA in the past and they never happen. The worst one, I remember, this is a boxing fight. I dreamt that Nathan Gorman, you guys probably won't know about these boxers unless you're from the UK. You might know about Daniel Dubois, but I dreamt that Nathan Gorman knocked out Daniel Dubois, right? That was like it was both prospects at the time. It was like 4 years ago. But Daniel Dubois knocked him out in like round 6, just completely dominated the fight. So don't go and bet on Cyril Gane versus Francis Ngannou, but just triggered in my mind when I said the future of the heavyweight division. But yeah, what I'm trying to say is back to Arlovski. You know, he's only losing to the best of the best. You know, Tom Aspinall, in my opinion, is the best of the best, or he will be. Jairzinho Rosenstrike. And then other than that, Sakai. That was a split decision. Sakai is a good fighter. Obviously, he did lose to Walt Harris. So that wasn't a good loss. Before that, you know, Shamil tied to Ivasa. But to be honest, that was like, you know, you're going back like 4 years ago or 3 years ago now. In the last 2 years, you know, he's beat these fighters, Chase Sherman, Tanner Boza, Felipe Lins. And to be honest, I lump Felipe in with Sherman, Boza, Lins, you know, that level. I don't lump him in with Shamil, Sakai, Taito Ivasa, maybe, Walt Harris, probably around there. But you know what I'm saying? Like, he's been losing to a better fighters than Carlos Felipe. Carlos Felipe, obviously, he does bring some stuff to the table. He walks forward, he throws heavy punches, but he's basically a heavyweight boxer. He doesn't have anything else to his game. He has a couple of leg kicks, but not really, man. He's basically a boxer. Obviously, the MMA world was in uproar last time, and I will get to the exact line I'm going to tell you in a minute. It's not actually Arlovski's money line. You can probably guess what it is. But just back to Felipe, you know, the whole world or the whole betting world was in uproar last time out because Carlos Felipe won that split decision win against Jake Collier. Obviously, lots of people bet Jake Collier. Great bet, by the way, whoever bet Jake. I didn't bet Jake there at plus 230, you know, plus 200. Everyone was screaming robbery because obviously they had bet plus 230 on a split decision. I don't think it was a robbery. I don't think there's really an argument that it was a robbery. It was a very close fight. Obviously, first round to Jake, second round to Felipe, clear. So it was 1-1 going into the third round. I don't think anyone argues about that. It's just the third round, right? But the third round was very close, you know, so I don't really think you can scream robbery. Obviously, it's just really frustrating that if you bet plus 230 and it goes to a split decision, you're like, what the fuck, man? Like, I had amazing value there. But at the end of the day, if you do that throughout your betting career, consistently, you will be in profit. So it's important to not get too emotionally invested in gambling in general, and I don't want to go off too much on a rant, but it's very important you keep even keeled in your emotions. Probably, look, there's lots of important aspects to gambling, but I almost want to say it's the most important thing you want to do if you're actually trying to earn good money from this, is you want to be able to be emotionless in terms of your wins and your losses, right? Because it's just very hard to earn money long term if you get emotional after every win or every loss, right? And by emotional, I don't mean crying or screaming with joy, but you have to keep an even-keeled mindset. When you see these people coming out and going, that's a robbery, it's disgusting, I've been robbed, that's their emotions getting the better of them, right? Especially in a close fight like Felipe and Collier. In a complete robbery, fair enough, you might legitimately be, saying your opinion, even though I still don't agree with it. I still think you need to keep calm. But, when people are like super upset and, just saying this is a disgusting game and stuff like this, then that means their emotions getting the best of them. And I've been in this game long enough to know that long term, that will affect your wins and losses. And it's probably hard for some people to understand that. Like, look, man, someone can be pissed off if they lose a bet, but it goes deeper than that. If you're getting emotional with your wins and losses, and I want to emphasize your wins as well, if you're getting emotional, it does affect you because you're not able to see any mistakes you potentially could have made because the emotions are clouding them. So anyone who bet Jake Collier in that spot is not then looking back at that fight, right? If they're screaming robbery and letting their emotions get in the best of them, they're not looking back at that fight and going, okay, what did I do wrong here? It was a good bet, but is there anything I can learn from this? They're not doing that. What they're doing is saying, that's a robbery, that's disgusting, fuck off, that was a great bet, on to the next fight. They're not even looking at that bet, right? They're not even trying to improve because in their mind, their emotions are overtaking it and saying that was a great bet, you just got completely robbed. So, over the long term, if you get emotional with wins and losses, if you think you're the best after a couple of wins or a few months of wins, then also you won't look at your bets properly either. So that was a bit of a rant, and you know me, guys, you know what you're getting when you come to this podcast. Obviously, I'm trying to keep it short and concise, but I do rant a lot. One of the main things I want to do in this space is educate people on sports betting, not just give you winners, not just help you make money, which is obviously number one, but I also want to educate and stuff. So yeah, just make sure you just keep your focus and keep even keeled with your emotions over your wins and your losses. Don't get too high off your wins. Don't get too low off your losses. But yeah, so that was a close fight between Collier and Felipe. And just one more small point on this. I bet Carlos Felipe via decision in that spot at plus 150. Obviously, his money line, terrible bet. I would have never played that. But I played his decision line and I put on the members area of my website, which I think I even posted it up on Twitter after. I copy and pasted the video. So every week I do a video on my website where I talk about my betting philosophy, like how I just spoke to you there, but I go more in depth into it, try and educate my members, but I also talk about the bets we have and talk about exactly why we bet on them. And I specifically said that Felipe fight is going to be super close. It's going to be back and forth. It could go either way, but I'm going to play the Felipe decision line because Felipe walks forward. He puts his hands up in the air after he hits you. He shouts a lot. His forward pressure is extreme. He doesn't stop moving forward, talking, showboating. And the referees, the judges score that. Whether you like it or not, whether you think it should happen or not, they do score that. And by the way, because I posted that after the fight, and a few people messaged me and stuff saying, no, it doesn't matter. They shouldn't have scored it. Felipe talking shouldn't score points. And I said, well, it's not only that he's talking, it's that he's walking forward. So cage control, is a scoring criteria in MMA. And then it goes back to the point I was making. A lot of people were like, no, it's disgusting. Jake Collier got robbed. And that's what happens when you're super emotional. You're not able to look at things like what I just mentioned. Felipe walks forward, which is what I noticed before the fight. And that's what made me play his decision line. And I think at plus 150, that was a great bet. That's 40% implied on a fight that I think is going to go to decision 80% of the time. And yeah. So anyway, I'm going to get off that fight, but there was quite a few lessons in that fight, I believe. But look, he's going to a split decision with Jake Collier. So I do think Andrei Arlovski is going to be able to outpoint him. Now, the most inaccurate betting line on this card, in this fight, in my opinion, Andrei Arlovski via decision. Now, I'm just going to bring it up here because I want to see exactly what the price is. And what I'll just do as well, I'll share my screen. Anybody watching live will be able to watch along with me. But if you're not watching live, don't worry, because I'll just explain to you what I'm seeing on my screen. Yeah, so if we just zoom in here, we've got Andrei Arlovski versus Carlos Felipe. And I'll just click the props tab on bestfightodds.com. And we'll see, look, the fight goes to decision as minus 175, minus 180, minus 190 now. Look, I still think that's a good bet. I think this fight is going to go to decision more often than not. I think it's going to go to decision more than 70% of the time, which means that minus 190 is quite a decent amount of value there. So, look, Andrei Arlovski to win via decision is plus 150, plus 160, plus 155, plus 175 best price, right? I already locked this in. I think I got plus 180, plus 187, which is a great line. Obviously the line's changed a lot since I bet that and since I sent it to my members. But at the end of the day, I still think there's value on that line. I think this fight goes to a decision fucking 80% of the time, to be honest. And I think the majority of them times, Andrei Arlovski win the fight. Andrei Arlovski is able to stay on the outside in most of his fights. That he wins and throw leg kicks, pitter-patter jabs. He's got a great jab. He's able to measure range very well these days. There was a period in his career where he got knocked out multiple times, but he's completely changed his style now, kind of fighting like Overeem. Not fighting like Overeem, but he's changed his style like Overeem. So he knows that he's in a heavyweight. He knows that his chin is kind of gone. So, he's on the back foot now and he's trying to keep range, whereas he never used to fight like that. Well, back in the day, he used to just storm in and just knock people out. But, that was a long time ago now. Yeah, but I think that this fight is kind of easy for Andrei Arlovski. Now, I hate saying stuff like this because, look, MMA betting is so hard. And at the end of the day, random things happen in the short term. Obviously, we win in the long term, but random things do happen in the short term. So for me, this fight is just a classic Arlovski via decision fight, So because it's so obvious to me, I'm so fucking worried that Felipe is going to pull the cat out of the bag. Look, there is a path to victory for Felipe. Obviously, he can crack Andrei Arlovski with a big shot. At the end of the day, they're heavyweights. No matter what you want to say, I do think this fight is going to go to decision 80% of the time or something. But I honestly do think that. But at the end of the day, they're heavyweights, and all it takes is one. It's a cliche. Most of the time, cliches are cliches because they're true, because they get said a lot. Why are they said a lot? Because they're true. This is a heavyweight fight. If he catches Arlovski on the chin, it could be all over. Also, there's another path to victory. Obviously, that if it's like a close fight, which Arlovski's fights, they always are. You know what I mean? It's not like Arlovski's just running away with the fights that he wins. Usually, he's just doing a little bit more. So if he is just doing a little bit more than Felipe, but Felipe's the one walking forward, talking shit, landing the bigger shots, landing more combinations, then yes, maybe the judge's decision will go to him. So, that is something you have to think about. But at the end of the day, I think that Arlovski, he's got the reach advantage in this fight. He's got the height advantage in this fight. And I think he'll be able to stick on the outside. God. Hiccups there. I think he's going to be able to stick on the outside, and I think he's going to be able to outpoint Carlos Felipe here. I think he's going to throw leg kicks. I think Felipe is not going to really be able to throw the leg kicks back, so I think he's going to rack up points that way. I think the jab's going to be landing more than Felipe. I think Felipe, the thing about Felipe is that he's a boxer, right? So what he needs to do is crash distance. He has to stand in the middle of the octagon and basically tee off. But Arlovski doesn't fight like that. Arlovski's on the back foot. He's switching stances. Maybe not so much switching stances, but switching angles, I meant to say. I didn't switch stance there. I switched angles. So, he's always moving, right? He's on the back foot. He's measuring the distance. Whereas the fights that Felipe likes is like the tougher fight when he's in the middle. And by the way, lost that fight as well, but he did win it on the judges' scorecards, but it looked like he lost. But, he needs to be in the middle, swinging down, you go, I go, you go, I go. Kind of like the Golovkin-Canelo fights, just back and forth. That's what he likes. But Arlovski's not going to play that game, man. Arlovski's going to be on the outside, on his bike, range control. I've got Arlovski's Wikipedia up here, so I'll just go off that. But yeah, so I think this is a solid fight for Arlovski. I think this is a classic Arlovski fight, and that's why I'm extremely worried, because it's very rare when I'm like pretty confident about a fighter that is a pick'em. Andrei Arlovski was an underdog up until not long ago. So it is a little bit worrying at heavyweight. It is a little bit worrying that he's 42. It is a little bit worrying about all of these things. But at the end of the day, I just think Arlovski's going to win this fight. And plus 150, plus 160, Arlovski via decision, great value there. We've been getting a lot of value on these decision bets. And actually, the last podcast I did, it was the Santos and Walker fight. The Santos and Walker event. And the most inaccurate betting line on the card I gave out was Jared Gordon via decision at plus 250. Obviously, that cash. So a crazy amount of value on Jared Gordon via decision. I also recommended his money line plus 125. Marginal value on that line there. So, a lot of value on that decision line. Hopefully we can get more value on this decision line as well. 2 decisions in a row. And in fact, the one before that, I think, was Volkanovski via decision against Ortega. Yeah, it was at like plus 140 or something. Yeah, plus 140. Obviously, we got bailed out on that one. 100% honesty from me. That fight should have been stopped. I think Herb Dean had the goes to decision. By the end of the day, we cashed that bet. And as I always say, long term, we're going to lose a lot of bets from luck, and we're going to win a lot of bets from luck. That's just the way the game works. So happy to salvage that one there. And yeah, I'm going to give out Andrei Arlovski to win via decision, plus 160, plus 175, plus 150, whatever, as the most inaccurate betting line on the card. Bang. The next fight we're going to talk about is the main event, right? This is the final segment in the podcast. Thanks everybody for watching so far. There's been about 30 live viewers on average, so I really appreciate that. At the end of this, I will just address the chat quickly before I log off, but I'm just going to get through the podcast first. For those listening not live, I don't want to be answering everybody's questions, while they're listening after the fact, right? So the main event, Aspen Ladd versus Norma Dumont. Aspen Ladd's coming in at the moment as a favorite, minus 140, but you've got Norma Dumont sitting at plus 110. Good fight, man. Even fight on the betting lines, fairly even. Aspen Ladd slight favorite. I agree with the line. And yeah, just get into the fight. So I like Norma Dumont. I like this girl a lot because I almost backed her in her debut again. Oh, not in her debut, but in her second fight, which was kind of her debut because she fought Megan Anderson in her debut on short notice. And, Megan Anderson, that was a bad fight for her to take. She got knocked out in the first round. But yeah, I like Norma Dumont. Almost backed her against Ashley Evans-Smith, but there just wasn't enough tape for me to do it. I did back her as a pretty big favorite against Felicia Spencer, plus 175. Clean performance by her there. Won the first 2 rounds comfortably. Close fight, back and forth really, but she comfortably won that fight. Obviously, Felicia Spencer's a pretty good fighter. She's fought for the title before. She's like a well-known women's fighter in women's MMA. So that was a good win for Norma Dumont there. Plus 175 underdog. I bet her at. And she's an underdog here again. So, she's been an underdog in all of her fights in the UFC so far. And, she's won 2 out of 3. And she's an underdog again. But she's a good fighter. It's funny because you don't usually see girls like Norma Dumont as an underdog because she's a good fighter. She got good skills. But obviously, she's been fighting fighters who are, she fought Megan Anderson, Ashley Evans-Smith, that we couldn't get a read on her by then. But then she fought Felicia Spencer, and now she's fighting Aspen Ladd. So she's fighting good fighters, Felicia Spencer, Aspen Ladd, and Megan Anderson. That's not an easy 3 out of your 4 first fights in the UFC, So obviously the UFC knows the level that Norma Dumont is at. They're booking her accordingly. She's winning the fights as well as, she's also winning these fights. So, yeah, I think this is a great fight, man. I think this is going to be a very, very good fight. I'm really looking forward to this fight. Both girls bring it. Both girls have power. Aspen Ladd's power mainly comes from the ground and pound position, but Norma Dumont's power obviously comes from the clinch position, but also the strikes. Norma Dumont is got the clear striking advantage here, but Aspen Ladd has the clear grappling advantage. Now, I will say that we haven't seen Norma Dumont taken down in the UFC, so we don't know about her defensive grappling. I have heard through the grapevine that when she fought Maurice in a Maurice fight, she was taken down multiple times there. That was 3 years ago. She hasn't been taken down since, but I did see her on bottom against Felicia Spencer in the 3rd round, and she didn't look good from bottom. She couldn't get up. Felicia Spencer rid her out there. And I also will say that she looked tired in that 3rd round, so that could be not necessarily just her defensive grappling, but just, she was tired, so she couldn't really fight back. But Aspen Ladd's one of the best top grapplers in the division, so I do think, in the bantamweight divisions and definitely in the featherweight, so I do think she's going to have an advantage on the mat. And she's going to have a cardio advantage too as well. But then Norma Dumont's got the striking advantage, especially early. So I think this fight is a tale of 2 fights. Norma Dumont's obviously going to want to keep the fight on the feet. And she's going to tee off on Aspen Ladd on the feet, in my opinion. Aspen Ladd's going to get hurt and get struck a lot in this fight, especially early. I think Norma Dumont is going to land some heavy, heavy boxing shots. But if Aspen Ladd survives, which you kind of expect her to do, I know it is women's featherweight, so there is more finishes than flyweight women's, for example, but they are still women. It is still 145 pounds. There is still a lot less finishes than, the higher weight classes. We just spoke about Arlovsky, for example. Ironically, that fight's going to go to decision, and I actually think this fight isn't going to go to decision. But at the end of the day, Aspen Ladd's not facing Ngannou here, so she probably will survive. But I do think Dumont has a good chance to stop her on the feet. I really do. But, she probably will survive. And then if she does survive, this is why it's a tale of 2 fights. Norma Dumont early with the striking. But if she does survive, then I think Aspen Ladd is probably going to take over, because I think Aspen Ladd's got a lot better cardio than Norma Dumont. I've seen Norma Dumont slow down in the 3rd round twice now. I think Aspen Ladd, if she is still alive, if she's still awake come the 3rd round, I think she's going to start to take over. And this is a 5-round fight. Norma Dumont's never been 5 rounds. I don't think Aspen Ladd's been 5 rounds either, to my knowledge, but it looks like Aspen Ladd has the better cardio just from what we've seen on tape in their 3-round fights. I think Aspen Ladd can start to take over middle of that 3rd round if she hasn't, been knocked out, or if she doesn't have so much damage that she can't even push a pace, because that happens a lot. Fighters, they got better cardio, but at the end of the day, they're just so beat up that they can't really push a pace. That is potentially in play here. I do think the one's going to land early, but I think that Aspen Ladd could take over in that 3rd round and, really start to put it on Dumont. I think the takedowns will start coming, and I think that ground and pound will start coming. And I think Aspen Ladd's going to get a late finish, 3rd, 4th, 5th round finish, if she doesn't get finished early, right? So, look, my official prediction will be Aspen Ladd to finish, because I just know that, women's fights finish more on the ground than they do standing. So there's not a lot of standing knockouts or standing TKOs in women's MMA, but there is a lot more ground and pound submission from top position, So I just favor that Aspen Ladd is going to be able to survive and then put it on her. But at the end of the day, it is a good fight for both girls. I think both girls kind of have the style to beat each other, in my opinion. Dumont has that style where she's got decent takedown defense and she's got much better striking, which is what you need to beat Ladd. But then Ladd, on the other hand, has that resilience, has that heart. She never gives up. She's got heavy ground and pound, and she will consistently go for takedowns. I think that's what you need to do against Norma Dumont. Unless you're like Amanda Nunes or, maybe even Megan Anderson. Obviously, that was a weird fight, in my opinion. I don't necessarily know if the fight will go that way, but Megan Anderson is absolutely huge. Obviously, Norma Dumont was coming up from bantamweight, even though she has missed bantamweight a couple of times. So, yeah, I mean, there's a couple of other things I can talk about this fight. Obviously, both girls are moving up divisions. Norma Dumont fought at 145 in her last fight, but I think she did fight 135. I think it was against Ashley Evans-Smith, but I believe that was the fight she missed weight. This is all off the top of my head, so don't call me a liar for getting anything wrong. But I think that Ashley Evans-Smith. So both girls are kind of fighting at 145 for, they haven't fought that many times there in their career. But both girls are a similar size. I don't think anyone's going to be, too much bigger. I think Norma Dumont may be a little bit stronger, but I still think Aspen can get takedowns, especially if Norma gets tired. Obviously, Aspen, we saw her get, this is just a little more caveats now. I've told you what I think is going to happen. We saw Aspen get knocked out in about 10 seconds, which you don't see in MMA a lot, women's MMA, sorry. But that was against Jermaine Durandamy, who's an credentialed kickboxer. I don't think she's going to get knocked out that early here, but it is a little bit of a worry. Her chin, maybe not be the best to get knocked out in 10 seconds, but we haven't really seen her hurt that badly other than that one. She gets tagged all the time, though. Not too much more to say about this fight, guys. I'm predicting the Aspen Lad late stoppage, but I wouldn't be surprised if Norma stops her early. So I actually don't mind the unders in this fight, women's fight, but I don't mind the fight doesn't go to decision. I think that's a pretty good bet. I jumped in it myself at like plus 110, plus 100. It's actually minus 125 now, minus 120. So obviously I sent it out to my members a good few days ago, but or 1 or 2 days ago it was, but obviously the lines moved a lot now. So that's one of the most important things in MMA. You want to be, getting on the lines as early as possible or on the best lines as possible. Sometimes it's better to wait for the lines, depending on what side you like, the lines get better later in the week. So don't always jump on it straight away, but majority of the time you should, because it's hard to know what way the lines are going to go. That's a skill in and of itself. And even I haven't perfected that skill. Oftentimes, I think the line's going to go one way and it goes the other. So that's very, very hard. It really depends on, who's betting on the fights, how big a fan base a fighter has, narratives in the media. There's loads of random shit that you can't predict in terms of predicting line movement in the short term. But over the long term, you can kind of, guess where the line's going to go. But yeah, you should basically be jumping on early 90% of the time, just because of the unpredictability of the lines. So yeah, that's it, guys. So just a little recap. The most exciting fight, Klein minus 400 versus Landry plus 300. I'm predicting Ludavik Klein to win inside the distance via KO. The most inaccurate betting line on the card, I am saying Andrei Arlovski via decision, plus 150, plus 160, plus 175. Shop around. Someone in the chat said it's plus 200 in a couple of places. Labrooks and Ned, so there you go. I think Arlovski via decision is the most inaccurate line. I think he's going to win via decision. The next fight we spoke about, the main event, Aspen Lad versus Norma Dumont. I'm going with Aspen Lad to win via 4th round TKO, but I do not like a money line side in this one. I like the under. If you want to bet, I like the fight doesn't go to decision. I like under 4.5 rounds. I think that this fight ends inside the distance, and I think that it could come from either side. So although I'm predicting that Aspen Lad via 4th, 5th, 3rd round stoppage, I don't like Aspen Lad inside the distance as much as I do. Doesn't go to decision because she gets hit. So that's it. Thanks, everybody. Thanks to everybody for listening. And I will be back next week and hopefully earn you some more money. If you want to sign up with my handicapping service, the proof is in the pudding. I'm third-party track, so I cannot fake my record. betmma.tips/lucrative MMA for my third-party track record. We've probably won the most in the MMA industry this year, plus 111 units. And we're just going to continue winning more. I will help you make money. I will make you money from betting on MMA. Simple as that. Also, if you sign up to my handicapping site, you get philosophy video every single week. It's usually about 45 minutes where I go in depth on my betting philosophy. And it basically helps you become a better, as well as just getting my picks straight up, right? So that's a big part of the service. It's not only that I tell you what to bet on and make you money, but I also tell you how to bet. And obviously in the long run, it means you can do it yourself. So that's it, guys. Thanks everybody for listening, and I'll be back next week. Okay, I'm just going to catch up with the chat real quick because it's been a while since I spoke to everyone. So here we go. What are we saying? Pillow Fist saying, hey, James, looking forward to your most inaccurate line. Yeah, I'll ask you a decision. What did you think it was going to be that? Did you think it was going to be something else or? Anaconda. Big weekend for us, Capface. George, I did already say that. You probably was watching. Minus 120 or something. Jack Attack saying I thought Klein was wide when he was minus 290. I put him about there. I put him about minus 290. So I don't think it's lied, but I don't think it's value. I think that's basically what I would make him. But definitely could be closer again if he just avoids the early knockout. Yeah, 42 years old, Arlovsky, old guy. What's up, Wade's Venture? Andrade, big up, lad. El Sweat. Felipe has such poor fight IQ. He messes around. He does, but the thing is, he's won all them fights. You know, he's only lost once in the UFC, right? Against Sergey Spivak. So it wins him the fights. You know, like that forward pressure and stuff. But it's not good to see as a bettor, but it actually does him more good than bad, in my opinion. It might cost him one day, though, if he gets a judge who's just not in the mood, you know. George is saying if Felipe showboats his way to another split decision, he's going to break his laptop. Well, maybe you should bet on Felipe if you think he might do that. Then you're not going to break your laptop. You could buy yourself a new one. Shamlock is saying you're the best man, a GSP of MMA betting. Thank you, brother. I can't take that title from GSP, the Guspa, but I appreciate it, man. Ben is saying, in poker, we call letting your emotion influence your play tilt. Yes. Yes, and even the kids say that, right? You're on tilt. I think that's what that means. Bus up, boys. Give us a Conor McGregor impression, please. Do you read the comments? Give us a Paddy Pimblett. Who do you want, bro? I can't do them all. Fucking hell, lad. You know who the boy is. And that's a Paddy. And then, well, we're going for Conor now. All right. Someone's going to clip this and bang this on YouTube. Don't embarrass me. Your wife is in my DM. I can't do it. I can't do that one. All right. Havoc saying he's got Felipe, throws more volume. He does, but is Arlovsky going to be there to take the volume? Maybe. Early prediction on Glover versus Yan. Strongly leaning Yan. Yeah, Yan, early prediction, but don't listen to my early predictions because I always change when I watch the film, you know, when I do the work. So, what's up, my man? What's up, guys? What's up? Pillow Arlovsky decision, yeah, plus 200. Hunter, shout out Hunter. He's saying way behind, liking Bruce Lee in the background. Yeah, I got a double Bruce Lee, actually. I got Bruce Lee here, and then you can probably see this one. Oh, I'm trying to move the thing down. If I move this down, you can see Bruce down there. So I got double Bruce, you know. Then I got this one, which is faded because of the sun. Quite funny. This is the Masvidal versus the BMF title. Masvidal versus Nate Diaz in a GTA like print. And we've got a couple others. We got the Masvidal knee on Ben Askren there. We've got Hickson Gracie, the absolute legend, up there. So we've got a few. Khabib's here. Oh, Khabib's there and there. And then the man Adesanya right there. Anyway, probably boring everyone now. So get this back. Ben is saying it paid to wait on Ben Sanchez this weekend. Yeah, exactly. BP is saying Burgos or Billy Q early prediction. Fuck. Yeah, probably Shane Burgos, to be honest. What's the line for that? Let me check because I feel like it'll be kind of closely lined. You know, like maybe Burgos minus 170 or something. Let me search Burgos. If they got it out. Oh, they don't have it out yet. They don't have it out. God Mode, shout out to God Mode. He's saying, let's make money. Let's do it, man. We've been doing it for the whole year, so I don't know why it should slow down now. B Anon, thanks, mate. Best of luck. Yes, Okay, that's it, guys. All the chat done. I appreciate everyone for watching. I'll be back again. Obviously, we got Bellator this weekend. Who do I like in Bellator? I think Corey Anderson's going to beat Ryan Bader. These are some exclusive for you. Exclusive. I think for everybody waited this long, I'll give you some exclusives. I think Corey Anderson's going to beat. Ryan Bader. I think that Benson Henderson's wife, Maria Henderson, who's fighting in an amateur fight, I think she's going to stop her opponent, Colette Santiago. You can get plus money on that play at the moment. Who else do I think is going to win? I think, all the big favorites, I think a lot of them are going to win. I think Vadim Nemkov's going to win. I think Jalen Bates is going to win. I can't wait to see that. I think Berkamov is in a decent fight against Jaleel Willis. I think he should probably be able to win that fight. Henry Corrales maybe should be favored, but that is a bit of a dodgy one. But I do think you probably get the win there. Benson Henderson, Brent Primus, I don't know. I think the fight goes to decision in that one. I'm just giving you random bets and stuff here now. Carl Albrechtsen versus Yag Shamuradov. That's an interesting one. Albrechtsen probably can use the takedowns and win the fight. But yeah, that's my Bellator thoughts. And that's it. I appreciate everyone for being here. Please like the video, thumbs up, all of that stuff. Give it a comment. I think it makes the video grow. Apparently, that's what all the YouTubers say, so probably believe them. So I'm going to get out of here now, guys. Good luck on all your bets this weekend.